morning to all and welcome to the Fly High India podcast series. We look at addressing the critical issues of employment and employability in today's tech world in this series. Fly High India is a co-produced series by NASSCOM, Future Prime Skills, Blitz India, and the Whiteboard Labs. In this series of 6 episodes, we aim to provide clarity and guidance to the future and current workforce on the issues related to the future of work and what we need to do to be productive members of the workforce. Fly High is a podcast series which aims to provide clarity and guidance to the future and current workforce on such issues related to future of work. The series should not only bring clarity to the current and future workforce members, but also the older generation as they are in a position to guide the next gen with their experience and understanding. The history and the role of knowledge and technology in our world. This episode will create the base for the rest of the series by explaining the impact of tech on jobs, including at the current time and where we are headed. I am your host, Sandeep Saxena, editor and trustee, Blitz India Media. I also lead the new initiatives at Blitz India, including education and skilling. Blitz India is a developing weekly covering development landscape and stories of change. The world is experiencing an overload of technology, from the much touted AI to the IoT to the drones and so many more. This overload often leads to a distorted understanding of the importance and the impact of said technology on people as workers, as users. An example of this is the intense dialogue and general feeling that AI will take away jobs, but will it? We will now know this and much more as we go through our various episodes with industry professionals and thought leaders. To understand where we are, we first need to understand where we came from. To start us off on this 6-episode journey, we have Dr. Rohit Shipstone, who has been in the IT industry in India since about 40 years. Worked in companies like Hindustan Computers, HCL, HP, and Microsoft, and is a serial entrepreneur since 2007. He's currently heading a company named Collabzo Solutions in the EdTech space and incubating their brand, Whiteboard Labs in Australia. These companies have done extensive work in the area of creating employability and closing the employability gap between industry and academia, and work closely with NASSCOM, Future Skills Prime in this endeavor. With this, let us get into our short talk with Dr. Rohit Shipstone, our guest speaker today. Welcome, Dr. Rohit Shipstone, to the discussion today.
Thank you.
For the benefit of the audience, Dr. Rohit Shipstone comes with a very intense background, so we are going to hear from him. Dr. Rohit, I have a question for you. You've been in the sector for around 40 years in the IT sector. Can you take us back to how we came to here today in terms of the technological progression, and how do you see things are heading going forward?
Yes, Sandeep, I've been around for a long time. That's an understatement, actually. I started work life in 1984 with a company then called Hindustan Computers Limited. Those were the days when the epitome of a computer was actually a step calculator. We called it the Micro 2200. It was as big as about a suitcase. The first computer, actual one that we had, was an 8-bit machine with 64 KB of RAM, which needed a 15 feet by 15 feet room to be housed in. But interestingly, computers have been around long before that. One of the earliest and most well-known devices was the abacus. The abacus is one of the many counting devices invented in ancient times to help count large numbers. But it is believed that the abacus was first used by the Babylonians as early as 2400 BC. The abacus was in use in Europe, China, and Russia centuries before the adoption of the written Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Then in 1822, the father of computers, a guy called Charles Babbage, began developing what would be the first mechanical computer. And then in 1833, he actually designed an analytical engine, which was a general purpose computer as we know it today. Today, we have come a long way from the time of the abacus or Babbage. Later on, we had what was known as the ENIAC and the UNIVAC. Today, we are in the fourth industrial revolution, moving into the fifth. We lived tech-enabled lives in a tech-enabled world. Everything we use has an element of tech in it. Even the food we eat, unfortunately, is greatly influenced by technology. So that was a brief description of where we are and how we came about it, Sandeep.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rohit, for this insight. The next question which we have to you is, we seem to be heading towards a convergence of various technologies, manufacturing, agriculture, automotive, etc. With IT, how did this happen?
You're absolutely right. For sure, that is where we are headed. How it happened? Well, that is where innovation comes in, Sandeep. The development of a technology in itself is one thing. Using it and applying it usefully is another. Innovative and new ways to increase your productivity using new tools is your innovative and creative mind at work. So this convergence was bound to happen. IoT is a huge enabler, as are smartphones, which in themselves are a technology convergence. Precision agriculture, industrial automation, automated irrigation systems, all these are results of tech convergence, which increase productivity and quality. A very clear use of convergence is in the field of education itself, where the new standard is being referred to as Education 4.0, which uses multiple kinds of technologies to enhance the learning experience. So yeah, I mean, this is where we are headed for sure, and we're already going there. We've already taken the steps. We are not in the first step kind of environment right now. We've gone much ahead, Sandeep.
Thank you for this perspective. And you touched upon Industry 4.0. How do you explain this in the context of India? How are we progressing, and how are we looking at it going forward?
So see, Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution is essentially a culmination of Industry 3.0. So 3.0 was where all this computerization, digitalization, etc. Happened. Happened in maybe islands or maybe in an integrated way, different ways. Came about on enhancing these technologies to, let's say, manufacturing. So when we talk of automated manufacturing today or computer-aided manufacturing, different nomenclature, they're all an outcome of manufacturing which is driven by automation, which is enabled by IT. Right? So the fourth industrial revolution is to do with the application and development and application of various technologies which go into not only manufacturing, they also get into things like even marketing for that matter. I mean, today, see, if you look at the way people buy things, you have your phone, you go onto an app maybe, or even if you're in a store and you're faced with a choice, let's say you're buying a phone and you're faced with a choice between two models, say one is model X and one is model Y. And you're not able to make up your mind, I'm sure you'll get into forums right there in that store. You'll connect into forums of both and see what are the pluses and minuses. So these are small, ways of using technology, let's say in a buying decision or in a selling decision. Different, even business models have changed, and that's what makes all the difference. When business models change, the entire process of business has changed, which means that the kind of workforce that you require, that has changed, that will change. different competencies will be required, different backgrounds will be required. And that's why you see this happening today, where you see that people are suddenly thinking, okay, AI is coming, I'll be out of a job. That's not necessarily correct. You may not be out of a job, but yes, you may need to get retrained completely. And that is borne out by so many studies, so many surveys which have happened among globally among companies, studies by the World Economic Forum, studies by HBR, various platforms who have studied this movement and are very clear that they're saying that by 2030, 50% of the world's workforce will need to be retrained. So for the fourth industrial revolution, which is now coming into the fifth, which is the usage of the technology of the fourth industrial revolution, is where this whole change is happening. That's where this whole difference is coming about, in what used to be and what is going to be. There are three very different things. As I said earlier, development, invention of new technology is one thing. The application and usage is completely a different ballgame.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rohit. I was about to talk about 5.0, and you already touched upon 5.0. The transition from 4.0 to 5.0 and how we are looking at the future now evolving, and how do you see you also touched upon AI taking away jobs. So how are we seeing this evolution going forward in terms of, since we're talking on the workforce, we're talking of future of work, how is it going to impact the workforce, and how we are looking at this impact to be addressed? What's your take on this?
See, I believe, and my belief is also based on various studies, as I said earlier, on how this transition will happen and what will be the outcome of this transition. So I'm very clear that we're already actually in the process of the actual process of the transition, and we're beginning to feel the effects. The transition is essentially from what I call a human worker to a premium human worker. Now, what is the difference? It's not a superhuman or something like that. Essentially, what I'm talking about is the worker of today needs to be inculcated and trained in the usage of the technology, not necessarily the technology itself. We don't need developers. We've got enough developers. We don't need great inventors. Yes, we need inventors, but we need inventors of the level of we need to make another Google in India, for that matter, or another Microsoft. We've never been able to do that. We've actually been followers. We need to become leaders at some point in time. But yeah, that's a different subject. As workers, we need to be trained in using the technology of 4.0 and 5.0 based on our competencies. Let me give you an example to clarify what I'm saying. You use a GPS, right? You must be using Google Maps or the application that Google has, which helps you find ways wherever you're traveling, right? It shows you a particular way, but you may know that on that road, which is showing you to go on, there is something which you don't want to experience. Would you take that road? Or would you spend another 15 minutes to take an alternative route? I'm sure you would choose the latter option, not the former. Right? Now, that's your human judgment. That's based on your emotion, your observation, and your mental analysis of what that situation is all about. Can that process of your thought process of your mind be replicated? Not at the moment. So essentially, the human judgment based on emotions or observations or other stuff, which a machine cannot do is where the human needs to focus to be able to work with that machine, not to compete with that machine. Okay, yes, a day may come when the machine is trained in all these things. I don't know if that day will come, nobody knows. Right now, a machine will do exactly what it's trained to do. You cannot train a machine to have emotion. You can train it to recognize emotion. That's a very different scenario. Okay, so humans, if they want to survive in this new world, have to enhance their competencies, which are based on USPs, if I may, of a human. They need to enhance it. Letting it lie dormant is not going to help, which is what we are doing today. We are actually letting machines do everything for us without exercising our own emotion or judgment, and that's something which we need to get out of. As far as how it'll, yeah, please carry on.
Thank you, Dr. Rohit. So this what you just explained actually connects to the next question we have for you, which will be a little more specific. In this era of the global knowledge economy and the tech convergence, will only the superhumans survive? How can an ordinary person scale to handle the kind of business processes and disruptions which are happening right now?
See, we are deep into something called the knowledge economy. Okay. And that's a very popular word. I think it's become over popular. So I want to take a step back and understand what is it that we mean when we say the knowledge economy. Putting it simply, the knowledge economy is an economic system in which the production of goods and services is based principally on knowledge-intensive activities. Well, let me repeat that. It is an economic system, A, in which the production of goods and services, B, is based principally on knowledge-intensive activities. And when you talk about a global knowledge economy, which we are then talking about a shared pool of knowledge, not islands of knowledge, which then enables global supply chains, global markets, etc. Therefore, the key element of value is the greater dependence on human capital and intellectual property as the source of innovative ideas, information, and practices. This is irrespective of the sector, it cuts across. As is obvious, these are intangible assets generated by people, okay, according to their competence, thereby making people the most valuable asset. So this in part answers your first question also. In addition to land, machine, and labor, therefore, we now have a fourth aspect, which is knowledge. Secondly, I think the most misused and obsolete term is the word skills. Industry no longer requires just skills. What we require are competencies. Competencies are the person's knowledge and behaviors that lead them to be successful in a job. Competencies combine skills with various other knowledge and traits and attitudes. In the knowledge economy, what one needs are competencies, not only skills. The problem is that we still think of competencies as skills and make that fundamental mistake. The evolution of education 4.0 based on industry 4.0 focuses on this, as well as the learning process, which needs to be adopted and which is very different to what we have previously experienced and in most cases continue to experience even today. So the question actually is, how can a person gain the required competencies? I believe, and therefore my answer is that we all have them. We all have creativity, we have empathy, we have knowledge, we have honesty, ability to follow instructions, etc., etc. We all have that. What is needed is the way to build on them through a conscious training and practice. Such a person who has developed him or herself is what I call a premium human, a person who is not only employable and of use to industry, but one who can command a premium. Such a person exhibits those competencies and which complement technology and who use technology or its tools to build their business. Such a person is a product of their knowledge. This person can be anyone. You think a farmer does not have the sense to check a soil meter, or a factory worker does not have the capacity to manage a robot? Of course they do. They have the competency. They are all potentially premium humans. But the big condition is this: we are all responsible for our own learning and development, not our teachers, not our mentors. This is what Education 4.0 is all about anyway, on a self-determined learning. And this is where we often fail, Sandeep.
I think you've explained it well. We touched on three things. One, we talked about global knowledge economy. Then we talked about tech convergence. Then we talked about business processes and disruptions. And now, in the light of all this, what is your final input in terms of how and what needs to be done by the current workforce to stay tuned to the needs of the industry? When we say the industry is evolving, a lot of disruptions are happening, AI is coming, you can't become a superhuman. But having said that, what is your final two-liner for the audience who is with us right now? How they are looking at, how they should be looking at, because of your experience in the sector, how you see this aligning and what needs to be done?
I know we've been all over the place today, but summing it up, properties of the fourth industrial revolution, moving into the fifth. Very soon we'll probably get into sixth or seventh or whatever. The pace or the speed of change is very, very fast. What is relevant today may not be relevant 3 months down the stream. Earlier, if you learned something today, you were qualified to do something, you could probably depend on that for the next 3 years. No longer can you do that. So what is happening is, with that speed of change happening so quickly, associated learning is also changing. Which means that today, if I take up a job, my learning will not stop. I will have to keep on updating myself, learning new things, learning new business practices, learning new ways objectives can be achieved. So we've got ourselves into a situation where our learning will never stop, and that's a process called continuous learning. And that's something that I would advise every young person, or even I would say anybody, to get into. Even people who have retired, if they can keep updating themselves, their amount of knowledge can be a huge benefit for the youth of India and the world. So continuous learning is what is the need of the hour. We have to accept that, we have to adopt it, and we have to practice it. I think more on the subject will also be taken up by Mrs. Kirti Seth, who's one of the speakers in I think the second or third episode, right?
Thank you. So I think last point from where we started, employability. I think that's a thing which is a critical subject to be covered in the series, and we look forward to more experts coming to us in this series, participating in the discussions for the benefit of the audience concerned to this space. And I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to Dr. Rohit for your time, for your experience sharing with the audience today. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we would connect with you soon during this series. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Bye.
you.